So kind of back to me then bashing bashing the government-owned healthcare. I'm not really bashing. I'm just throwing out things that I want to talk about, obviously, or things that are concerning to me. Because then, okay, so you get into the government system. So again, for people to understand something that I learned, you may still get the universal health care, but if you want the better program, like what you said, you get it through your company, or you have to pay for your insurance to get the good stuff. There are long lines, there are long waits. The higher you're better off and the more money you spend on, which I did want to tell you, in 2013, I actually found out they actually had to make a law because remember when you brought this up originally to me, I was like, well, the problem when you buy into better healthcare system is that the rich is going to buy the best ones and then they're going to leave everybody in the dust. And apparently that's what was happening with this system, where in 2013, they actually had to pass a law to equal it back out, because what ended up happening was that all the rich people had these great programs and the middle class had nothing. They had to pretty much settle for the universal healthcare system because of that. So in 2013, they actually had to work on fixing that. So again, that was one of my concerns I had.
I didn't know that
people the rich will buy it all up and then they'll leave us all in the dirt, which was happening. And in 2013, they made a law to actually correct that, to bring the balance back down. So that was also a little bit of a concern with my thing. So far, my number one concern with all of this is the high cost, the how much money is literally coming out of your pocket for taxes and all these additional insurance stuff seem to still be a very high cost for this program. I guess other kind of things you can look at as a negative is one of the things that why these people can charge better rates and lower costs is also you can't sue. If a doctor fucks up your surgery and you die, you're kind of up shit's creek on that point. So if a doctor does something that's wrong with you, you really can't sue. There's actually, I think, 10 countries in the European, not all of them, Mikey. Remember, I said how.
Okay. I didn't realize you said. Okay, yeah. I didn't realize you said European Union. I'm sorry.
So the European countries, out of 10, out of 10 of them, you can't sue at all. Like you can't. If something happens to you, they leave a thermometer up your ass and it breaks. Yeah, well. You're up shit's creek. You can't do anything about it. And then the other ones, they do have malpractice laws, but they're very minor. You know, you're not saying that it's right for in America that here you can sue a doctor for $20 million and walk away with it. I don't think that's right either. I think there's, again, a lot of issues that we have in our country with stuff like that. I think if something happens to you and something bad happens, us charging $20 million, $30 million, $100 million to these doctors is a ridiculous cost. But lawyers don't care. They just want the money. Anyways, I digress on that. But we all know that is also a problem within the medical field. But again, you can't do that in these European countries either. So this is a government system. And obviously, if you sue them, you're taking it from the taxpayer money, and the taxpayers are going to have to pay up and all of this stuff up. So malpractice is very hard. Besides, in 10 of these countries, you can't do it at all. And the other portion of it, you have to have a super solid case to even get it passed.
I was totally unaware of that. I mean, that's good information, honestly. I mean, I also am wondering how sue happy the rest of the world is compared to us. I mean, that's kind of what's that?
They're not close to us. We're the most sue-happy country in the world.
So that brings me to my next.
You're about to get sued for not calling us the sue-happy country in the world.
But that was going to be my next point. Is it seems like, and this is just going off the cuff from what I've seen just by observing, I don't see other countries going through lawsuits and suing doctors and stuff like that. Well, heck, maybe because they can't, but just sue happy in general. Let's even say that. I don't see it is the American way, and that is exactly why that's another argument of why pharmaceutical companies like Johnson & Johnson can essentially turn around and say, oh, well, we need to stock up our profits because if we get sued, we have to make sure that we can cover everything.
You're 100% right,
so
Mikey.
so
Actually, if you look at America, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you look at 35 of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, in the world, actually, um, the ones that operate in the United States profit $8.6 trillion. That's after expenses and everything. So this is the stuff that is driving our costs higher that other countries don't allow to happen, which keep our costs lower.
Correct. Or you mean keep our costs higher than other countries?
Well,
because we're dealing with the Sue happiness, and you're 100% right.
That's exactly right. You're right.
I've learned that a lot. Actually, I've learned so much, moving up in my company and learning how businesses work and how the stock market works and how you got to. But yeah, they expect you when, a lot of people complain that, we have a lot of high CEOs and there's a lot of profit and the margin is so big. And I get that. But a lot of people don't also get is that they have to have a certain margin to keep the stockholders happy and to be there for the Sue happiness, right? Because they're going, dude, like I think it was tobacco, right? Everyone was like, oh, tobacco is this big company. They had to pay out like $27 billion, part of some lawsuits and stuff like that for big tobacco companies and stuff. They have to have that money, right? You can be sued at any time where you can lose a lot of money. And a lot of these companies now there's this huge gap that continues to grow from the wages of the employee to what the company's bringing in. And a lot of that is lawyers, stock, and then actual profit afterwards, right? Actually, growth is down here. And then you got all this money up here for, again, lawyers and being sued and all that stuff. So I 100% agree with you, Mikey. You're definitely not going to get an argument out of me. I actually think that's one of the biggest problems with this country with our high medical costs, because every doctor, I've learned this in the hospitals. I couldn't find out, but I couldn't believe that every hospital literally has a law office floor where there's literally an office where there's a bunch of lawyers, and that's all they do is deal with shit in the hospital all day long. They paid lawyers to be there all day long just in case if anything pops up, that they have these people. So I definitely understand that. And then my last, I guess, jab on government healthcare system before I get into capitalism and the free market and privatized healthcare is, and this has happened, and there's been a lot of cases of this in these countries where the government pretty much picks who lives and dies, right? Because these are government programs. If they don't think that you're going to make it, or they suspend the money on you, or you have a low probability, guess what? They can write you off. And I've always been very curious as a person who has a precondition, and you definitely had a lot going on with you recently, definitely over the past couple of years, there was a lot going on with you. If you had a low probability, and, we talked about your medical bills, and you can bring it up here, I don't know if you want to or not, of how much it costs to kind of keep you alive and keep you going. If the government deemed that, guess what, you're not worth the cost, they could have let you go. How do you feel about that with the universal healthcare system of a government-owned system making that call?
Well, having a pre-existing condition, I could tell you right now, I would not settle for just the minimal. What I would do is I would have those supplements, and those supplements would allow me to get ahead of that situation. Again, if you're on the bare necessities of government healthcare, then yeah, they're unfortunately gonna do that. But if you buy one of those supplements, you're not in the percentile anymore. You're actually, well, depending on what policy you buy, which I always, because
concern you a little bit? I mean, I'm just saying that doesn't really concern you that anybody should be able to fight for their life as much as they want.
Well, they don't have that right here either, really. I mean,
well, they do. Okay. If you want to keep your family members alive and fight for it and spend the money and get these people, I mean, you hear stories all the time where people have no hopes and they spent all this money, and yet, you know what? They probably go bankrupt after doing it, but some loved one comes back out of it and stuff like that. But the whole point is that it is their choice, right? And the government's taking that choice away.
No, oops, I hit the wrong button. Here's the thing.
Oh, you hard.
here's the thing, TJ, and I'm going to put this in perspective for you of why I have to disagree with what you're saying. You talk about people being pushed off and told that they can't get what they need. But there was a time where I was laying on the hospital bed a little bit younger, but previously, and I was actually just about to enter the surgery room when hospital representatives came in, and I believe it was a typo or something like that. Because my insurance was not validated, they were in process of stopping my surgery. I am not the only person that has experienced that.
That is
correct. I know a lot. No, I'm not going to say. I know a few people that has happened to, and that's just in my small community. So
but
when you say
was passed, not Obamacare, but a law was passed that they could not do that anymore.
That's great. That's great that they don't do that anymore. But I'm going to tell you,
I understand what you're saying.
But they have, and you know what? To tell you the truth, you just like you say you don't have faith in the government. I'm going to say I don't have faith in individuals who are operating the keyboard to make sure that my insurance information gets entered in correctly, and I'm able to go ahead and get that procedure. Because what if I was in a ward state and essentially that typo, which I don't know how much time it cost because I was a lot younger. But how much time did that typo waste that if I was in an extreme situation, it would have happened?
Mikey,
so
I made one mistake in my life. You're going to continue throwing that in my face? Jesus Christ. All right, get over it.
No, I'm putting in perspective. I'm putting in perspective, and it's just an experience that I had, as well as I know other people that more recently, I don't know when that law was passed, but I've actually had recently that one of my friends had to have his surgeries postponed because something happened with the verification of insurance. Now, luckily, again, that individual was not in an emergency matter.
I think it's emergency, Mikey. I don't think it's non-emergencies. Not more saying that if you have cancer, like if you go to a medical right now and go to the hospital and you have an emergency, they have to see you and they have to treat you and they have to take care of you until you're better, no matter what your insurance is. Now, if you go back later and you're like, oh, I got to go in for surgery and all that stuff, then yes, I see. I will agree with you on that point.
Saying sorry.
Oh no, Kyle's got corona. I saw him cough.
It's the Rona.
It's the corona. He just dies.
That's what I was gonna say is. So, and I know that I've told you this story before, TJ and Kyle. You heard it probably for the first time the other day when we were doing our pre-shoot. But another reason why I got to say that I'm a fan of universal healthcare is because I'm gonna lay it out to the people just like how I laid it out to you. And I know we see eye to eye on this, but I'm just throwing it out there because it's my view. When I got out of high school, I wanted to start a computer repair business. That was my dream out of high school. So I says, okay, well, I'm going to start a company. Well, this is before Obamacare. So I said, all right, first thing I need to do is make sure I have health insurance. Now, there was recently around that time that we graduated, there was a law that came out that said that you cannot decline pre-existing conditions, but it didn't put a cap on how much money you could charge them. So I didn't know this. So what I did was when I would start trying to get my business established, I says, okay, well, let me see how much my health insurance is going to cost me. That health insurance pre-Obamacare was I don't remember the exact amount, but it was close to, if not $175,000 per year. And I sat there and I say, okay, so before I even start my business, I'm already down $175,000 compared to my next competitor. So now my hands are stuck not being able to live out my dream at that time and being able to open up my own business, which is supposed to be the American dream. So Obamacare and universal health care essentially gives me and individuals like me the ability that if I want to run and operate my own company, I can do that. And, okay, I've always got to worry about my health, but at least I know I'm insured and I don't have to worry about $175,000 payment at the end of the year.
No, and that is like what you said. I'm not going to argue about. That's one of the big push for Obamacare, and one of the things that I am happy for. So you're not going to hear any gripes from me about it, because that was one of the good things that I felt that came out of it. Even though, like I said, I rip a lot of things about it, but again, and I kept saying it, even though, like I said, I'm taking a hard stance on it, because again, I do see a lot of negative sides to universal health care. I know with you, Mikey, I definitely get that sense of that obviously the good outweighs the bad, right? And I can see that, right? But I think in the long run, what's going to sway me more is fixing our government, right? Fixing how we run things, how we do things, and how we can get past these issues. How we can get past a lot of the stuff that we have problems with, the programs we have today that run complete like shit, like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, all of this stuff that government-owned control today that they can't run right, and that we have so many, they can't even spend the road money on the roads.
That's your local issue. That's a local issue.
but Mikey, I'm one of those big people that I think a lot of stuff can be not solved always through federal. I believe that sometimes I feel like at a local level, like Obamacare actually started in Boston. It was Romney Care. Romney started this program, and it was in Boston. That was
and Romney voted against it.
Yeah, it was my experience. Yeah, and he fucking voted against it. Yeah, right. He voted against his own shit.
That was the best.
I did not like Mitt Romney at all. But yeah, so again, that was like kind of. See, you finally got me off track for a second. Sorry. That's the first time. Can we mark that on the calendar? Mikey,
DJ forget. He pulled a Mikey.
But that's my issue again, is that I don't trust in the controls of our government right now, because look at our debt, look at our issues, look at all the stuff that goes on here, and we want to add to that. And I think that's just going to cause more issues and more problems.
So I wish you would have brought the debt. I never even thought of the debt. And this is something that we could talk about in a future episode when we talk about the economy. I'm sure that's a topic we'll be talking about in the future. But as far as, oh God, get it again. What was the point?
I don't know your point. You just started on this one.
What did you end up with? What did you end up with? Oh,
the debt.
Oh, with the debt, if you look historically,
and I'm the one drinking,
dude, I got brain damage. With the debt, if my memory serves me correctly, and I don't have this information in front of me, so if you want to say I'm wrong, please provide me the info, and I will retract what I'm about to say. But if I remember correctly, the debt started to drop. I'm not saying it was a huge drop or anything, but under Obama, the debt started to go down. Now, this is also after a huge financial crisis issue with
the debt didn't go down. The deficit went down.
The deficit went down.
Like how much the cost? Like our debt is still growing, right, but the cost of our debt accumulating dropped.
Okay. So our costs have dropped. Okay, so I have to look up the numbers, but my assumption was we were actually gaining more money through the Obama years until recently, and I'm attributing that more to the coronavirus than Trump. But from what I understood, our economy was on the upswing and things were looking better as far as debt-wise when Obama left office. But now I can understand, especially with the stimulus packages that have been passed due to coronavirus, I can understand where our debt has then increased. But if memory serves me correctly, and I think you corrected me on this, I don't have the stats in front of me, but we actually started getting money in the bank, whether that's through reduced debt or less spending. That's maybe something where I'm mixing up my information. But
The debt has been increasing every year. During the Obama years, especially his last, I want to say 3 years, we started seeing a difference in the deficit. So that's actually how much we owe yearly, right?
Right.
And that was due to the healthcare. That was due to how much money, because when you have every American now that's putting money into the healthcare system and they're taxing that, it was actually a big thing. And this is when everyone came up to me. They're like, oh, Trump's going to get rid of Obamacare. I'm like, he won't. They're like, what do you mean he won't? He said he would. I'm like, he won't. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, once Trump realizes how much money Obamacare actually brings into the economy because of the money that comes in and how much they're taxing it, he won't do it. And literally, what was a month into it, and he gave up on it, and he hasn't talked about it ever since.
That's not true. He made adjustments to it. He
made adjustment to it, but he hasn't gotten rid of it. Which
no,
he
hasn't gotten rid
that
of
I'm making is that he has not gotten rid of it.
No.
Now the deficit has increased again underneath Trump's administration, and that is something that I have definitely been very disappointed in, because I obviously voted for the guy to fix our money issues, not add to it. So that's another conversation we can talk about.
Yeah, just to touch base, I did actually pull up a graph, and I'll send it to you for my notes. But when I'm looking at the graph of the federal deficit, I see the Great Recession was 2007, 2008. Yeah, it definitely jumped up. But then 2010, it starts to kind of level out. 2011, it repeats the same. And then 2012, 13, 14, 15, those are all dropped.
So the 3 years, those are the 3 years of Obama.
Yeah, the deficit. Okay, so the deficit. So
and then
what
Trump
I'm saying
came
is,
into office 2016,
and now it's
right?
going up. So yeah. So what I said was correct, that our deficit under Obama has dropped up until Trump took office, which I know you're stating. But so make sure we're on the same page. Since Obama left office, the deficit has gone up.
Correct.
And essentially, with dealing with a recession, to me, I'm seeing that he helped fix the economy and put money back into our pocket. Now, granted, we haven't had a surplus since 2001, but I mean, I'm looking at this graph, and man, I think we got to give conservatives a new name, because conservatism looks like it adds to our deficit.
So I feel like we're getting off the subject. So I just want to steer us back on. We're talking about nationwide debt, and we can definitely get into a conversation with that. But
sure.
Let's get back on subject really quick. So obviously I poked at government healthcare. I think I said enough that I can say about that. A lot of the, again, stuff that are missing out of it, stuff that I'm concerned about. And in the long run, my fears of our government, not overall a government, but our government taking on this program, where I think they will fail at and not very much succeed. Now let's talk about capitalism. Let's talk about the free market. Now, America's been doing this, right? We've been a free market. We've been trying to push out capitalism. Obamacare came in, kind of started socializing the program a little bit here. But still, even though America as a society, and this is what we're talking about, like Big Pharma and all these countries, we still have 40% of all the new medical research and the patents and the growth and the development comes from the United States. It's not like the closest person to us, I think, is like Japan at 20%. It's a huge difference. There's a huge growth difference between us and a lot of these other countries that have socialist programs, like Europe, Sweden. They're not high up there. Canada is I think like 10 or something like that. But when you get to everybody else, like, again, I think we had this conversation before, where how much does American could contribute to where other people, we usually double, and we are doubling right now. So that's also a big plus side to the free market, is that, yeah, you know what? We have a lot of money that comes in here, but we are also developing everything. We're ahead of all of these scientific improvements and achievements.
So again, what I see as the issue on that, and the evidence is the reason people come here, is because of the free market and being able to make, well, as one company has, over $1 trillion. So, yeah, why not go ahead and stuff your pockets full of money on people that need health? I mean, it makes sense. If you could do the same thing in Europe at $100,000, but come to the United States and get $1 million, which one are you going to do, TJ?
Well, yeah, but I don't see a problem in that. I mean,
Well, they're the
that's what
problem.
the market is, right? They come in here, they're developing stuff, they're ahead of the game, they're doing 1,000,001 other things, and on top of it, our government is this is again going back to seeing the deficit drop, right? Why did the deficit drop? Why? Because we dumped in a lot of money to the overall healthcare industry and the insurance, which is all being taxed back, right? So someone who comes over here is making money on our land, getting taxed at $11 million. That goes back into our economy.
Yeah. Did you ever see how much money Johnson & Johnson pays in taxes?
How much do they pay in taxes?
I was actually just looking it up because if I had the information, I wish I would have known you were going to bring up, the taxing information. But if memory serves me correctly, and I'm doing search here right now, but I believe it was next to zero. They were able to write off most of their expenditures and whatnot due to programs and whatnot that they were tax exempt from. I'll have to open that up at another time because I don't have the information in front of me to stand by when I'm going off and rattling out the top of my head.
So we can get into economy and stuff like that because I don't think a lot of people understand tax exemptions and how that all works and how that in the long run benefits and contributes again to America, because you have to do something to get the tax incentives. It's not just free. It's you did something for the economy. You did something for the people. You did something for growth. It's like AOC with the whole Amazon thing. Well, we got $3 billion. Why are we giving it to Amazon? It wasn't you had $3 billion. It was a tax break. Why? Because they were going to build this brand new business, and with the land, the cost, all these things, they couldn't do it. They needed the money. They needed assistance. They were going to do it, and they were going to add so many jobs. So again, we can get into a whole conversation on incentives and debt and all that stuff. But here's also another thing that really gets me with the free market. LASIK is a great example to bring up here. LASIK eye care, when covered under healthcare, and this is, again, my point that I was talking about with healthcare and the driving cost when you have healthcare and a private system, when you have a social system and a private system, and how we get screwed in the long run. When we had LASIK eye care, it ranged anywhere from $100,000 up. It could be $100,000 for one eye and $100,000 for the other eye, depending on the doctor you went to, depending on the equipment. Under healthcare, when healthcare used to cover this, it was up to that much. Now, healthcare stopped covering this. They went, we're done with this. Medicare, healthcare, everyone stopped covering LASIK eye care. And it became a public system, privatized, where doctors would offer it. Now you can get LASIK eye care for $500. Mm-hmm. You can get LASIK eye care for $200. So the moment it became available, where it was in a free market and it had to be competitive, it had competitive prices. So this is what I bring up here, is that if we would, again, take away all this government socialization and we'll go to a free market, but add controls onto that free market that will stop them from price gouging. Because the American people, you're not going to go to a hospital when you know how much they're going to pay for Band-Aids, how much you're going to pay for this. If the American people can treat this like a free market, like if you went to Wendy's or McDonald's and you saw the price and you can see how much things are going to cost you, and you're going to be like, whoa, that's way too much. I'm not going to pay for that. I think, and actually not that I think, it has shown, this is not only one example I'm providing, but it has shown that once it becomes a free market, there's a difference.
To me, what that shows is once insurance is out of the equation, it becomes the fact that they can't bill the insurance companies whatever the heck it is, $10,000, $100,000. So now that they're not going to be getting that $100,000 check from the insurance company because the insurance company is going to cover it, they're now going to go ahead and say, okay, well, now we need to make it more marketable. So what you're actually saying is a prime example of why universal health care is actually beneficial due to the fact that if you take insurance companies who are price gouging and allowing these LASIK companies to price gouge the insurance companies, well, you take that out of the equation, who are they going to price gouge? Well, no, with universal health care, it's going to be essentially the same thing where it may not be covered. Maybe it will be. I don't know, but I don't think it would be covered because it's not covered now, what you're saying, which I didn't know that. But by not covering it, they're not going to start covering that. So to me, with your example, you're showing me that by removing the insurance company and not allowing that LASIK company to send a bill to the insurance company for $100,000, now they know they ain't going to get that money because that's not reasonable. That's price gouging. Like my search. So again,
my point is on other side of it is, again, so why did we force into insurance? And that is what's causing these prices to go up, right? Because now everybody's forced into insurance. Why not get rid of it? Again, get rid of this insurance and privatize it. You can say universal.
Can't do that.
You can say universal, but why not privatize it then? And then this way you're competing for pricing.
You're not competing for pricing. You're competing to see who's going to pay the most money to these doctors. See, that's what happens now is these insurance companies, they set up contracts with these hospitals that say,
but we say get rid of insurance. That's the point of what we just both agreed on. Get rid of insurance. Now it's direct cash flow between us and the product. Now, if they know they can't price gouge for these items, they have to be competitive, meaning they actually have to put out products that we have to spend out of our dollar signs to purchase and buy.
So here's why that wouldn't work. Although it sounds like I never thought of what you're talking about. And that's actually, to tell you the truth, it got me thinking for a second. But the first issue that I see with that, although I wish that there wasn't, because it sounds like a semi-good resolution, the machinery that it operate, so like an MRI machine. Mm-hmm. I wish I had the damn bill in front of me, but an MRI machine is not cheap to operate. You have to have a technician. You have to have the machinery. The machinery alone, I mean, I'm purely pulling a number out of my ass. I would assume is close to the 100,000. The one I was in, if it wasn't $100,000, I'm probably lowballing. So the hospitals need to pay for that. An individual is not going to be able to afford that without some sort of insurance. Like if you get into a car accident, and accidentally kill somebody, well, they're going to come after you. And if your insurance doesn't cover it, well, now you're left on the hook. And if you can't pay it, well, now they start coming after all of your lovely belongings.
Yeah, but the doctors and the medical people, obviously, just like with any business, like what you said, you have to get insurance on your business and all that stuff. That's their job to get that type of insurance and money. It's just like everything else. And when you go to the gym and the gym provides you all that equipment, they have to buy the equipment, they have to stock the equipment, and they got to get insurance just in case anyone hurts themselves on that equipment. But it's still your job. They go in there and you can pick between Planet Fitness or LA Fitness. You're still able to go in there and go, do I want to spend $40 a month to still be fat, or do I want to spend $20 a month to still be fat? Who wants to take my fat money? It's like, which one? But you still have that choice and that option. And don't get me wrong, I understand there is obviously a cost to doing business, but oh my God, I'm saying obviously again. I caught myself like in the last episode saying that constantly. I stop that. I was doing the count on myself. So it's a business. It's just like an airline business. You're going to tell me an MRI or a doctor's office is cheaper than the airport, and it's not. Those planes are millions and billions of dollars to operate. Yet there's no universal flight system out there that the government is paying for these planes. These are privately owned businesses that are offering a service. I won't say the same thing. I'll correct myself on that because that's what I was about to say. But that's the world we live in, right? Is that when you go to get an airplane, if this was all set up that you had to buy tickets and you had to go through a program, then you have to always spend. Then they can price gouge you. Then they can take advantage of you. But guess what? They can't do that because if United starts taking advantage of you and charging you $1,000 just to go from here to Arizona, and Southwest is charging $500, you're gonna go Southwest. That's just common sense. Everyone's going to pick the lower out of the two. So guess what? United has to compete. And right now, the medical industry in the United States don't have to compete. You need to do it. You have to pay into this program. Now, I'm not saying universal healthcare won't solve these issues. I think I actually agree with you. I think it's shown on other things that it can be beneficial, but the free market also has shown to be very beneficial and has had positive results. So I just don't know. I think the only thing that really puts me into a pickle is that I just don't know if our government doing a universal healthcare system would actually be very beneficial. But a free market in our system in America and the way we're built, I think would work better.
Yeah, as far as with the airlines and trying to compare them to the airlines, I know you're saying it's different, and I see that as really completely different. And the reason being is because you don't need to fly. You don't have to fly. You need medical if you get sick.
You don't need anything. You don't.
Oh, I guess you could just lay there and die. I mean, I guess that's an option.
Well, you can. I mean, that's what happened
I guess
to
that's
us
an
100
option.
years ago, 200 years ago.
So if you don't want to die and you actually want to live your life, I mean, I don't know if you have a death wish, DJ, but I don't. But essentially, that's not. It's something that you need.
Once, baby.
Hey, go out, man. But health insurance is a necessity, not just to me, but to anybody, because, geez, I mean, anybody, any one of us could be walking down the street and have a heart attack and have no prior history of medical.
Correct.
So now, with the current way things are, if you don't have medical, you're going to have to claim bankruptcy if you went in for a surgery. In fact, like I said earlier, the United States is #1 in the world for bankruptcies due to medical costs.
Correct.
So, the system's broke. I'm agreeing with you on that, but I see a free market as what the airlines did, is that there were less flights going to that area. You're going to pay more, and it didn't happen to, Southwest is charging less than United. Southwest seen, United is selling more seats, and they're charging X amount of money more than us. Okay, we'll boost our stuff, our prices up too. That stuff started happening during the airline crash when, if you remember, there was like 50 different airlines back in like 2005. It was like 50 different airlines going to all different areas. I could have gotten a round trip ticket. I remember buying a round trip ticket to New York for $250. That's because there was a ton of them, a ton of airlines. Now we're basically down to 4. My round trip ticket to New York is about $360 if I buy a full fare. I got airline benefits, so I actually only pay $25, but that's besides the point. My point being is, if you have less competition, as far as I've seen with your example of the airline industry, they don't sit there and say Southwest is charging less. They say, they're getting just as many people. Let's jack up our prices. Now you got the airline industry is at a level price, which if you look at the airline industry now, airline prices are almost exactly across the board.
I'm going to correct a little bit here, Mikey. You did have a bunch of airlines back in the day, and they went bankrupt. They lost money, and they went out.
Absolutely.
Well, it's not like, we only have 4, 5, or 6 of them today. And actually, we still have a lot. And what people don't understand is that they still do exist, but they were actually become subsidiary of bigger companies. So a lot of small companies went into American West because obviously they could have better protection. They had better name for themselves. They fly, like if you ever fly in small planes, you'll notice that the plane that you're actually getting on is either Express Jet or Continental Air, but there's a giant American signal, it's still painted American.
SkyWest, right?
Correct. Perfect example, SkyWest and stuff like that. So again, the issue was these people, they went bankrupt and they were bought out of other companies. Now, you are right. The smaller these piles get, the more the prices start to start competing with each other and stay high instead of having these other companies. That's why a lot of people, even today, wanted the airlines to fail. They didn't want the banks to bail out the airlines because they felt that would open up the floodgates to let other people be able to come in and knock out all these flights, like what you're claiming, that are being monopolized. Which I will give you that point, is that now you do have, like, it's actually more, to be fair, in the United States, you have like about 8 big carriers, right, that go to most locations, but the government bails them out. And again, this is my issue with a lot of stuff. In a free market capitalist system, you got to fail. I mean, if we're bailing things out, that's not capitalism. That's not free market. That's socialism. And we're allowing these big companies to proceed. Let them fail. Why did we bail out these people? Why did we allow Walmart to stay open? Why did we allow Target to stay open? Let them fail. Other companies will fill in the void. That is just the natural way that capitalism and free market works. So I do want to agree with you, but disagree with the beginning portion, at least, which was a lot of stuff that happens with the airline was due to the free market and being eaten up. If you're going to survive, you're going to survive. And they do compete with each other. We constantly are in battle. Right now, we're talking about which airlines are going to survive this coronavirus right now, and who's doing competitive rates to who's charging more. Because right now, when you have a lack of people flying, you got to be competitive with your rates. So it's not like if Southwest charges $500, we're charging $500. Southwest charges $500, we're trying to go $300. We're trying to beat out Southwest right now because of the business, because no one's going to fly us for the same price that Southwest is. We need to make the money. We need to steal those customers so we can still have a business right now and move forward. So I do want to disagree on those aspects. I mean, that is my job. That's what I do.
So here's the ultimate thing, and I know we're reaching the hour and 30 hour marker here, which we gone over our hour that we normally like to try to do. But my point being, as I wrap up what I want to say, you said exactly the point that I'm hitting on, the main point that I'm hitting on, and that's with less competition, money goes up. Now, in a crisis situation like what's going on with coronavirus, where all the companies are losing money, yeah, you're absolutely right. They got to lower their prices, but watch out what happens when this coronavirus is back in the corner. We have our vaccine, and people are able to fly again. You're going to see those prices are going to steadily go up, and you're going to see Southwest go from, we're at 500, they're at 300, we need to lower. They're going to say, we're still at 300, they're selling tickets at 500, we need to raise our prices. And there it goes again.
Yeah,
and that's why
I wouldn't say that's exactly, but I mean, I understand your point. It was just like when the economy was hurting and the airlines started charging for bags, right? And they started charging for upgrades and started charging for all this stuff that they didn't do before. It was all part of the price originally. Well, then the economy boosted, right? And those amenities never came back, right? They right. just always stood there, and they just made more money and all that stuff off of it. That I will agree on is that point of right there. But just like always, that's what happens when you do start having smaller groups, is that if you have only 4 or 5 people and everyone's charging, that you have to throw bags onto your plane, then you're kind of like, all right, well, we're all doing it now. But when you have a wider range, I'm not arguing with that factor. I do see that point. I'm just saying, in general, in a free market, there is competition. You can't just, I'm going to charge $1,000 and then someone charge $500. Oh, I'm going to charge $1,000 too. That usually doesn't happen. We're constantly always trying to battle for pricing that people will pay. Now, if I'm paying $1,000 and people are paying $1,000 to fly me, then why wouldn't Southwest raise up their rates if people are willing to pay that money?
Exactly.
That is a difference, though. But if people aren't willing to pay the money, you are reflected on what people are willing to pay, and that's kind of my point.
Right, and when you have people who are loyal to to their airline, like for example, I usually always stick to Delta or Southwest. Those are the 2 airlines that I stick to. I mean, at the end of the day, if I could find a cheaper airline, I will go with it. But there are so many people that have their rewards cards, have their miles, have their XYZ with that airline. So they're going to, regardless, use that airline regardless of the price. And that's what essentially drives the cost. That is my main point, what you're saying and what you're confirming, that with less businesses, the prices go up. That is what's going to happen with healthcare. But I mean, I guess the only way to be able to, say that that's actually going to happen is by us trying it. But I mean,
well, I think this is a great conversation. I think we definitely got a lot. I mean, we talked about this before. This is why this is going to be 3-4 episodes long. We just got a lot to say on the matter. There's so much coverage on it. And it is. I mean, I know even at the end there, we kind of got into budgets and we got into money, but that's what healthcare is going to lead into, right?
It is, absolutely.
You can talk about all the benefits and everything, but in the long run, it costs money. So I know a lot of people are like, man, they probably got off subject a little bit, but we technically really didn't. Because healthcare and money, people think healthcare is just free. It's going to fall off the tree. No, you're going to pay for it somehow. You're either going to pay for it by going through insurance companies, or you're going to pay for it through a universal healthcare system. And I think actually one of the things that me and you both kind of agree on is that I think the insurance system that we have in our country is what's destroying the country. I think that we have a lot of issue with it. If we go to a universal healthcare system or a free market system, you got to eliminate that healthcare system right in the center there, which is, I think, what's driving up a lot of the costs. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we saw a lot of eye to eye there with the rising costs of health insurance and lobbyists, and how they're really, really what's driving up the costs, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the lobbyists and it's profits over health. That's the bottom line of it. And again, I'm going to hammer down that privatization, in my eyes, as far as I've ever seen it, the less privatization, the higher your prices go. So the less companies there are to compete, the less you're going to go. That's why I say, let the government control it. I know you don't trust the government, but I don't trust people. I don't trust corporations. I don't trust people who have, for the past 30 years of my life, put profits over health. So I understand your aspect of not trusting the government, but in that same aspect,
government's run by people.
No, people. You're absolutely right. But let me tell you something. When Johnson & Johnson CEOs and whatnot are paying senators to go do their bidding to make sure that they could charge and make, $100 billion or whatever it is. Well,
that's going to be a whole. That's going to be a whole other conversation. I'm opening up more worms. I just opened up another can. Bah, 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 bah.
So the next thing that's going to excite me about this is our two guests that we have. We have Tara, who's a pharmacist, and we have Kyle. Excuse me, Kyle.
We're going to have Kyle.
Oh, boy. Lucas, my bad. We're going to have Lucas joining as well. He's more of a herbal medication dispenser. Right?
I think it's going to be really great conversation.
I think so too.
I mean, especially after leading into this, because the other thing that we didn't really mention, and I was kind of trying to get into, and we got into so many other conversations because this is such a big topic, is big pharma and all of this. You're talking about companies and big pharma and how they've been ranking in the dough, especially here in America. And a lot of us, we're on the fence. Is big pharma a good thing? Is big pharma a bad thing? So what's really nice about our next two guests is that we're going to have someone who's in the business, who's in the world of pharmacy and all the stuff that I'm going to definitely pick her brain a lot, because I have so many questions. And again, because as a person with lobbyists, we've talked about that part of the show, being concerned about, certain products being pushed out there in the market that's actually not beneficial to people. They're just making money off of it, and the dangers of that. And then having someone on the other side of herbal medicine, right? Because that's also a lot of options too. I know, Mikey, that you've been into herbal medicine. I've delved into it a little bit myself. I've seen benefits of it. And then in the long run, sometimes I feel like sometimes the conversation with herbal medicine's almost like a placebo, right? Where it's kind of like it may not do anything. So I think it'd be really cool to have both these people, especially in this conversation, talking about United States healthcare is when it comes to pharmacy and drugs and all that stuff. What is the better choice? What's out there? Maybe not even what's a better choice, but what are other options out there? And really get into a good conversation with the two.
Yeah, I'm excited because I hear a lot of people, especially from when I had my seizures, that CBD oils were like the best thing to use, and so I'm really intrigued to figure out why some medications may be better or if they're not, why not, in both directions, whether it's pharmaceutical or natural. To me at least, in my brain, I think natural, I think healthy, I think it can't be bad, but I've also learned that's not entirely true. So, there's that kind of raised some questions. I'm eager to get them on and figure out, get educated and learn more on the issue.
Yeah, I'm excited, guys, and excited for you guys. Continue commenting, continue chatting up. I do go back to look at old messages and old videos, so continue filling up the comments, filling up the sections. We do want to get to your guys' info. You guys brought up 2 excellent comments part of this episode, which we definitely delved into. This is probably a 2-parter episode because how long it's been. So even though we're wrapping it up now, again, another 2-parter, and then we're going to actually have another part with another person and a couple more people. So thank you all for watching. Please subscribe. Please share. Your word of mouth is so important to us. If you know other people that are just like us, that are in the middle, that you are looking for healthy conversation between 2 different viewpoints, and you're not seeing that anymore, and you're enjoying the show, tell your friends, get other people excited on this, and please continue sharing and continue communicating and being part of In the Middle with Mike and TJ. And thank you all for joining us.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much all for joining us. Whenever you're watching, wherever you're watching from, thank you for watching In the Middle. I bid you adieu.
Fuck off.
Good night, everybody.